In my career, I have successfully made at least 1,000 or so people more jacked. How did I do that? That is what we're going to talk about today. So, of course, as you probably can guess, I started out as a personal trainer. I liked training, working out. I struggled with depression, anxiety issues, and suicidal ideation when I was in high school, and I got into exercise as a way of learning to manage those issues. Then I went to college. I graduated with what, kids these days might call a very useless degree in philosophy. And of course, I realized that I needed to start making money, and really the only thing that I was passionate about and that I thought I would be any good at was being a personal trainer and helping other people to achieve the same level of success and happiness with their fitness goals that I had. I quickly discovered that, on average, a personal trainer's reach is really limited by just the geographical location that they are in. So ultimately, you're really only limited to the space of your gym and, of course, your personal social network and basically anybody that you can get to go to that gym. If you live in somewhere that is not, say, like a major city, that may not be very many people at all. And of course, it's also something where when you're a personal trainer, you get maybe 10 to 20 clients doing a couple sessions a week each, and that's basically how you fill out having a 40-hour week as a personal trainer. You can make pretty good money so long as you are able to fill up your roster, but that may or may not always be very possible depending again on where you are and just the geographical limitations, how many people you are able to reach. So when you're a personal trainer, you're very limited. You have to start finding ways to reach out and find more people. I experimented with a lot of other things. I tried things like, hey, maybe I could do in-person home visits. I quickly discovered I didn't really have the energy or the right disposition for that. At the end of the day, I'm actually really introverted. I am not very good with people. I'm not very good with sales. And basically just the idea of driving around a lot to go to people's houses to train them there, or having people visit my house from their place just didn't really jive with me. It wasn't really something that I thought I would be any good at. So the next step that I looked into was becoming an online coach. Now this may sound very, very silly nowadays, but back in 2012, when I was getting started, the reality was that blogging was really cool at the time. Cool is maybe not the right word, but it was a lot cooler than it is now. It was kind of the way that people were getting out there, making a name for themselves, establishing a following, and developing a business online. And of course, the idea is that if you have a blog, maybe you have some kind of product that you can sell, or you have a coaching service that you can sell, and you can make a decent amount of money that way, and you can also reach a lot more people. So I started my blog, www.gains.af, back in 2012. I wrote for it at first maybe once a week, realistically as maybe more like once a month. Not really very consistently, didn't really do very well in the beginning, but a few years later, essentially I had a lot more time to focus on it. I decided to develop it more, and then I got to consistently writing once a week. And then I eventually bumped that up to writing twice a week. I eventually switched to being able to do it full time. And of course, I also just did a little bit of work on social media as well. Organically, it got to the point where I'd reach about 10,000 people per month without me doing basically anything. Like I could just leave it alone and about 10,000 people would find it a month just through search traffic alone. And as a result, I started to reach a decent number of people. I started to be able to find clients and do online coaching. I was able to maintain about 25 to 50 online clients at a time, again, while also doing 2 blog posts a week and associated social media work. And this did really well for me. I was able to establish a living on this. When you're a personal trainer, you're being paid by the hour, which means really realistically quite a lot of time is wasted. You're doing a lot of time sitting around watching people do workouts when it would be a lot faster if they could just do the workouts themselves and you could just write them up the workout. It takes maybe 10, 15 minutes per week to write somebody their workouts, and then you have to spend all that time basically just standing around with them and watching them do it, which of course may be helpful for some people who need the motivation of a personal trainer to keep them going, but it's also something that is very time inefficient for a trainer and also limits how much work you can do. The reality was, again, that I suck at sales, not a terribly extroverted person, And as a result, I was limited a lot in my reach just based on the fact that I didn't want to do a lot of selling. I wasn't very good at it. And as a result, I was probably never really going to be a good personal trainer per se. Not in the sense that I wouldn't, get results from my clients and be helpful to them, but I was never going to make a lot of money that way. I was never going to really establish a really big base of clientele. As an online coach, I was working with 25 to 50 clients per month, which again is a lot more than the 10 to 20 clients that you typically work with as a personal trainer. Because again, there's just a lot less time commitment per client. And that means also that you can make your services a lot cheaper than it would cost to do personal training sessions, while also still making a lot more money per hour on your end. So it is a win-win for both the trainer and for the trainee. And also, again, you get to change a lot more lives that way. You get to influence and affect a lot more people and potentially cause a lot more good in the world. The next step was streamlining my processes. So I did get to a point where I was sort of treading water for a couple of years, working as an online coach, again, in about the 25 to 50 client range. And the reality was that I just didn't know what the next steps were. I didn't know how to then progress my business further, and I was kind of hitting that plateau and I was kind of struggling with it. Sometimes I would be working 6 or 7 days a week, basically putting all of my spare time into it, and still find that I felt like I was treading water. So I stepped back for a little bit. I decided that I wanted to shift my main focus and kind of just see what it would be like to do this as a side gig as opposed to a full-time gig. So I, didn't blog as much, didn't do as much social media stuff, and just focused on retaining the clients that I already had, working with them on the side, and got a new day job in the video games industry. Because my focus had shifted, that also meant that it was kind of forcing me to adapt in a new way. Because now my focus was no longer on finding as many clients as possible. Instead, it was about basically taking my existing processes, taking my existing client base, and figuring out, okay, how can I streamline this as much as possible so that I have to put as little effort into maintaining this side business while, giving me, as much time as possible to focus on this main day job. And this actually then became a really important step for me because it kind of taught me the way forward for my business in the future. I streamlined my processes significantly. I hired an assistant. I created templates to make it easier for me to do a lot of the common work that I was doing. I created documentation to help reduce the amount of onboarding time for new clients. I invested in software to automate processes that were tedious and make them a lot simpler and faster. Just in general, I took a lot of stuff that I was doing manually all the time and found ways to make it just take a lot less time. I also realized that ultimately, because my focus had been on creating content for the blog, just writing, because that's what I was good at. I was, good at writing. I wasn't good at social media. I wasn't good at advertising. I wasn't good at selling. I wasn't good at anything else. And I kind of knew that. But now, because I was not doing the writing anymore, I realized, hey, you know what I really should be focusing on? What's really going to get me more bang for my buck is not just creating more content. It is going to be actually sharing that content, actually emphasizing all of those things that I had not been doing that were the step to taking my business to the next level. As a result, I found that I drastically reduced the amount of time that I had to spend working with clients, taking on new clients, even finding new clients to work with. I could now take on nearly 100 clients at a time while still doing this as a side job. I promoted my assistant to work as a full-time coach. She is now taking on her own clients, and that also helps to grow the business. If I were to switch back to coaching full-time now, I could easily take on as much as 150 or 200 clients with my current processes without overwhelming myself. It would still, again, be a pretty tough thing working with that many people, really pushing myself to my limits, but I would be making a lot more money, I'd be working with a lot more people, I'd be able to really help out quite a lot more people. So how many clients have I worked with? Well, I've worked with close to 500 online clients over the course of doing this for now about 10 years. Of course, a lot of that comes from later on when I got better at finding clients and taking on more clients at once. Again, starting out, the first couple of years, no good. Was not a very good coach, was not a very good blogger, did not know what I was doing, just had a handful of people here and there. But I am so immensely grateful to those folks because I learned from them how to be a better coach. And as a result, the clients that I have today are getting the best possible care, all the time, and again, with a lot less effort on my end. As a personal trainer, I probably only worked with about a couple hundred people. And also, hilariously, most of that actually comes from just one job that I had for a brief amount of time because I quit, was not a big fan of it, which basically just involved a lot of group coaching. Lots and lots of people doing exercise classes. That, of course, greatly inflated the number of people that I worked with because, again, you work with maybe 10, 20 people at a time when you're a personal trainer, just doing one-on-one coaching in a gym. The reality is that virtually everybody who works with a personal trainer or online coach is going to be better off whether they know it or not. This is not, of course, to say that every single client is going to be a perfect success who achieves all of their dream goals all the time. Of course, that's simply not possible. You can put every single drop of effort into making the experience as good as possible for every single client. And the reality, of course, is that some folks simply aren't going to be a good fit or aren't going to be able to achieve their goals for other reasons that you don't really have any control over. However, every client will generally improve in some way. If you are there, you are a positive influence, you are at least teaching a client, you are at least helping a client, you are helping them along their journey in some form or another. They are better off than when they started with you. These numbers, of course, also just don't take into account what a massive number of people you can reach nowadays with modern social media. My biggest mistake was not getting into social media more when I could have and when I should have early on. Social media, like sales, does not come as easily to me as writing did. And so, of course, in the early days, basically all I did was focus on writing as much as possible and, of course, not really sharing it or really spreading it in a way that made any sense. So I was doing a lot of work, but it wasn't really reaching as many eyeballs as it should have been. Of course, now I am focusing on writing less and instead doing more things like making these YouTube videos, sharing stuff on social media, reaching out via my mailing list, and so on, so that I can reach as many people as possible. Again, my website still gets tens of thousands of visitors each month, even though I've basically stopped really doing much of any writing at all there. Now, of course, it's hard to say that you have made a huge impact on a lot of those people who are just readers, who have just interacted with your online presence in some form or another, but you can still say that you have, again, improved their understanding in some way. Rising tide lifts all boats. Whatever you have done, you have helped some people. I have always done my best to put out solid information and positively impact people's lives in whatever way I can. No shame, no harm, no criticism, just trying to be helpful, just trying to be supportive, and just trying to help other people to achieve their goals. As a result, while you could say that I have helped probably close to 1,000 people more directly, just in terms of coaching, it is also possible to say that there are many thousands of other people who have certainly been positively impacted in some form or another by my work over the last decade, and I am so proud of that. I am so glad to have such wonderful viewers, such wonderful readers, everybody who I've interacted with up until this point. So that is all for this week's video. I hope you liked it. As always, don't hesitate to like, comment, subscribe. Tell me what you would like to see in future videos. I will see you all next week. Have a good one.